Reddit, what the best revenge you've ever gotten on someone? My friend forgot to tell me about the midterm, so when he left his Facebook on, I got him timeline. In high school, my best friend since the 3rd grade, blew my BF of 2 years. I found out and stopped talking to her. She then starts dating this really hot guy a year older than us, and I became his friend. We turn into really good friends, and after a year of her being with him and him being my new best friend, he finally admits he has feelings for me. He then dumps her and I get the satisfaction of watching her cry in the parking lot. Best revenge ever. I didn't suck his big dick and he left her as just because he liked me. I was living with a friend of mine and a girl I didn't know too well. We became friends and started hanging out a bunch. I ended up getting into a car accident on the freeway and had to move home. It took me a few days to get back to pack, and when I did, most of my stuff was missing. I was furious and upset about it. The girl told me my friend had a few people over and that maybe they had taken the stuff. Well, I went to grab some boxes and pack some more while she was gone and went into her room to snoop, and sure enough, this girl had taken over half my closet and hid it in her room, including my CDs, old antique perfume bottles my grandma had given me, down to socks and bras. WTF? So anyway, I was livid. Packed all my stuff and took all my stuff out of her room that she was trying to steal. Then went back with some black garbage bags and took all of her clothes she had hanging up and anything else I could find. Took it all to BFE and lit it on fire. She called me frantic and said she was missing all her stuff, and I told her the people that took my stuff must have took hers too. Once she knew she'd been caught, she threatened me and told me she was going to call the cops. I told her to go ahead. They wouldn't have found anything anyway. In 4th grade, I was really into paper plane making. I even bought this book of all the world record holding paper planes and would read it every day. I had just moved to America and wore very tacky clothing, so I was made fun of a lot. So one day I copied the design of the paper plane that had the record for longest time in the air, 13.2 seconds or something, and threw it around the playground. It was in the air for 14 seconds. As I rushed to pick it up though, this asshole 5th grader came out and stepped on it. Now I was a tiny brown Indian kid and he was a big hockey playing 5th grader, but the anger took over me. I punched him in the face. He bled and I ran away thinking I was in trouble. He never mentioned it to anyone though and was always nice to me throughout middle school and high school. TL. Dr. Punched in respect. Fast revenge is good revenge. When we were kids, my sister pushed a whole raw egg into my mouth while we were fighting. I threw up and pushed that into her mouth. Justice done. In 8th grade, the class spread a rumor saying that me and my best friend were les for each other and that I'd contracted head lice from her pubes. Coincidentally, the kids we babysat at the time had a bad case of lice. In a moment of ingenuity, me and my friend swiped a few off their heads and put them in an envelope. The next morning in homeroom, we saw the little hunter sleep on her desk and dumped the lice on her head when no one was looking. They made themselves at home and she had lice for a month. 4 lovely weeks of giggling uncontrollably every time we saw her hopelessly scratching her infested head during class. Payback's a rig. When I was in high school, I had a friend who was a grade higher than me. We lived down the block from each other. One day at school I saw him in the hallway and asked him a question about soccer, which we both played. He looked at me and said, "Do I know you?" and walked off. I blew it off and when I got home went over to his house to talk to him about it. He said, "Sorry, but you are a junior and I am a senior. I have standards." I hated him for this comment. I spent a good 2 months hashing out my plan for revenge. I figured out that his mom and dad love their lawn and manicure it every 2 to 3 days. I found out his only child insecurity. He hated lawn work. One Friday night I found a Jewish deli that made fresh dough for bagels. They throw out the rest of the dough from the bagels at the end of the night. At midnight, I grabbed a trash bag of this dough and headed to my friend's house. For the next 5 minutes, I threw little chunks of dough all over his lawn. By the way, this was in the full summer heat in the southern US. The next day when the sun rose, those little nuggets of dough started to rise like ducking hybrid mushrooms all over his lawn, and they stuck to the lawn like concrete. His mother and father came out to go to work and was horrified. They blamed their son and his senior classmates for it, and he spent the entire weekend scrapping that dough up. My little sister and I used to hang out with a bunch of rowdy kids when we were 7 and 9. An 11-year-old boy decided to throw a rock at my sister from across a major street and missed. She calmly picked up the rock and tossed it back, and it glanced off his head. My dad proceeded to try to give my sister a talking to about throwing rocks, but he was beaming with pride. This one reminds me of when I was walking home from school with my friend. A bunch of kids start following us, shouting things and throwing rocks for no apparent reason. The rocks would always miss because they were pussies and wouldn't come close enough to be within range of their weak as throwing arms. So we ignored them. Then one genius threw his school bag at us. So I calmly picked it up and carried on walking. When we passed a bus stop, I deposited it on a bus that had stopped to pick up passengers. The driver didn't notice and drove off. So I just found out that my ex-girlfriend was only in a relationship with me because she wanted someone to go to prom with. I really liked her, so I dropped $240 on the night, tickets for us both, a tux, a nice corsage, and of course some alcohol. Well, after I found out that she had just used me to go, a mutual friend of ours showed me a conversation they'd been having. Something along the lines of how many guys she's hooking up with, how they are super hot, chiseled abs, whatever. I was pissed because she never once hooked up with me, and she wasn't even in a relationship with any of them. A couple months after all of this, that same friend showed me a text from my ex saying, "Duck, I have gonorrhea." Posted it on FB and tagged her in it. Boom. Not me, but my older brother. Him and his friends were in high school, and there was so much of a girl that would come and steal his friend's milkshake every day at lunch. This had been going on for a while and it was pissing all of them off. So my brother came up with a way to get back at her. The next day would be like any other. His friend would get his lunch and milkshake, but they would cut up some X-Lax and stir it into the milkshake. The next day rolls around and they proceed with the plan. Well, the itch comes in all her itchiness and takes the milkshake, laughing while she snatches his drink, and I think called him some rude name or something. The joke was on her though, because she apparently didn't show up for school for the next 3 days. That girl was keyless. And it was that day that her milkshake did not bring any boys to the yard. Edit, that last sentence is a lie. I was in a local mall's indoor car park and was about to leave. It was peak hour and traffic inside was crawling. I side parked and was the end of the row, so all I had to do was drive forward to join in the crawling traffic. This guy that saw me getting into my car, obviously being a big dig, decided to stick really closely to the car in front so as to not let me join him. Bear in mind the traffic now was not moving. I started my engine and waited for the big dig to pass before joining in the queue. He then got so close that he rammed into the bumper of the car he was sticking closely to. That felt real good. I smirked to myself and reversed to exit the other way. Calm as a rick. This is the best I can think of right now. I'm the manager of a local gym in my area. Of course, we have contracts that state you can only cancel your membership for certain reasons and have to pay a small cancellation fee. At most it's like $50. Now, being the manager, sometimes I let the cancellation slide if they have a really legitimate reason and let them cancel and just pay the fee. One day last year, this girl came in to cancel. She told me why, and I went over the rules with her again and her other options. She gets really cunty once I tell her the rules because her reason does not really apply to cancel. I was thinking about letting her slide at first, until she started being a royal itch to me. Instead, I told her nope and made her pay off the remaining 10 months of her contract to cancel. And it was her birthday. TL, dear happy birthday. Itch. So my neighbor, a young guy who lives by himself, always used to pee on my garden. I'm not sure why, but he just did. I decide to collect my piss for a week and pour it all into his bathtub. I sneak into his house at night and dump the piss into his tub. He wakes up and starts yelling at me. Then I stab him in the chest, hack off his limbs, then eat him alive. Nobody ducks with my garden. In 4th grade, this girl was being mean to me. The next day I brought nail glue for the cheap nails girls can get at the store and glued 2 of her fingers together. And if anyone knows what I'm talking about, that glue is a ridge to get off. My ex-wife kidnapped my daughter and went to Germany to live with her parents. After $50,000, 5 lawyers, inter-countries, the State Department, Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and lots of anxiety, I got my daughter back and had a ducking lethal court case against my ex. I chose to drop the charges because I didn't want my daughter to have mom that was in jail. The county decided to drop the kidnapping charges if she agreed to return to the USA. I could have had anything I wanted from that court case, but all I asked for was 50/50 influence on custody, education, health, and life decisions. That's all I was asking for originally before my ex flipped her sheet and left in the first place. Now my ex is married and has become super religious. I have taught my daughter to be accepting of others' beliefs, but to question everything. She thinks her mom is nuts. My daughter is ducking awesome. So there are these 3 brats in high school taking courses at this piece of shit community college I'd go to. They keep pathetically trying to insult me and my friend by making lame insults and calling us schmitty. Of course we decide to get back at them and hatch up a plan for me to have sex with the group's leader's hot cougar mom. I start getting friendly with her and getting very close to banging her. But all of a sudden, the kid exposes me for what I'm doing and his ex-mom takes his side. We get into an argument, which I obviously win, shaming him in the process. I end up ruining the kid's life, and I eventually duck his mom. TLDR, brats make fun of me, shame them and duck one of their moms. One summer I took an Algebra 2 class. During a break me and a classmate played blackjack for cash. One day I was down about $20 bucks, and I paid up. The very next day we played again, but I won my money back and then some. My classmate wouldn't pay up. I was pissed, so I was plotting revenge. I would always have a pack of gum on me and that bastard would always ask for a piece. I went to the drugstore after class and I purchased a pack of clarets and a pack of Phenamine gum, laxative gum, because the packaging looked the same. I have no idea why that company invented a laxative gum, but I thank the Lord some crazy bastard did. The next morning I walked into class snapping gum. Sure enough he took the bait. He asked me for some gum, and I gave him 2 pieces. He chewed that gum for about an hour. That asshole also stole a fruit pie from another kid's lunch bag right next to him while still chewing on that gum. He spit out the gum, ripped open the fruit pie, and inhaled it. He leapt up from his seat like frogs in a dynamite pond and ran out of class never to return. TL, Dr. Kid wouldn't pay a gambling debt. I gave him laxative gum, and he shat himself.